Greetings from the Santa Fe Opera stage. I'm delighted to welcome you to the fifth and final episode of Songs from the Santa Fe Opera, honoring the 5 originally scheduled opening nights of the 2020 season. I'm Joshua Dennis, and because the Santa Fe Opera has felt like such a family to me over the years, I'd like to introduce you to my family. I'm particularly excited for you all to meet my wife, Chelsea. Chelsea has worked at this company for 16 seasons. For the past 9 years, she was the production stage manager. And until last year, we split our time between Santa Fe and Los Angeles, where she was the production stage manager at the LA Opera. Last year, we moved back to Santa Fe full-time to welcome our son, Alexander, to the world. And around the same time, Chelsea accepted a new position here at the Opera, becoming the first female director of production in Santa Fe Opera history. Chelsea, why don't you come out to center stage for once? And this is Alexander, who just turned 7 months last week. Right now, he enjoys giggling, bouncing in his chair, and crawling nonstop. Before Chelsea and Alexander go and get their tailgate on, there is one more thing about Chelsea you should know. Not only is she a Santa Fe Opera superstar, but if you've been to the opera over the past 9 years, or if you've been faithfully watching this series, you'll recognize her voice. She's who many of us have come to call the voice of the Santa Fe Opera. So I might be the singer, but hers is the voice you'll remember. From our opera family to yours, we wish you a happy opening night. Take it away, Chelsea.
You ready? Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to the Santa Fe Opera.
this evening is particularly special as we are celebrating a new opera by composer Huang Ruo and librettist David Henry Hwang titled M. Butterfly. It was to have its world premiere tonight. I first started my opera journey when I was a theater student at what was then called Collin County Community College. As a theater student and a musical theater student, I studied with a man named David Alexander. David would often talk about his teacher, the great Elena Nikolaidi. She was an incredible contralto from Greece. I didn't realize it at the time, but it turns out that Elena, or Miss Nikki, used to teach voice lessons here at the Santa Fe Opera many decades ago. It was through David that I learned about Luciano Pavarotti, and I was smitten. I was slated to transfer to a university to study theater when my teacher, David, asked me to go have a voice lesson with his dear friend, Bruce Fowler. I knew Bruce had an amazing international opera career. I took one voice lesson with him, and I knew I was supposed to study classically. So I dropped all my plans and transferred to Stephen F. Austin State University in Nacogdoches, Texas, Axum Jacks. I soon learned that my teacher, Bruce, had been an apprentice at the Santa Fe Opera as well. As time went by, I learned more about this prestigious program. I knew that my next step from college was to get into an excellent young artist program from a top opera company, and the Santa Fe Opera was high on that list. When my time came, I auditioned in New York for the Santa Fe Opera Apprentice Program, and to my great surprise, I was accepted. My first year in Santa Fe was unreal. Most of the apprentices were in all 5 productions that summer. We worked hard. We worked really hard. And what I loved so much about that first year was that no matter how hot it got or how hard we worked, about halfway through the night, the sun went down with an amazing array of colors that I had never seen before, and the night breeze picked up. The smell of the high desert at night made it all worth it. It truly was the land of enchantment. And that's what I look forward to every time I come back to sing at the Santa Fe Opera. But most importantly, that first year is when I met my wife, Chelsea. And for many seasons since, we've been able to experience those sunsets and the desert landscape together. As a matter of fact, last year was the first production we had ever worked on together since I've been a principal artist. We got to experience the opening night of a world premiere together when I sang in and she called The 13th Child. To date, in some way or another, I've been a part of 15 productions at the Santa Fe Opera, and I count my blessings every day. Opening night at the Santa Fe Opera is unlike any other opening night in the world. There's a buzz in the air that is palpable, and the best part about it is that we have no idea what type of night it's going to be. Now, what I mean by that is we have no idea if the storm is going to be so loud that it drowns out our voices, if the thunder is going to crack right when the bad guy enters the stage, if the storms are raging all around us, but a singer's performance is so powerful, you tune it out completely. I've witnessed all of those things. Opening night is more than just going to the opera. It's music and the elements combined. You stand in the wings before the show starts, and you see the most amazing sunsets you've ever seen in your life. And as soon as that sun dips down behind the mountain, the downbeat happens. It's opera in sync with nature, and the earth is harmonizing with you. Like I said, there's nothing like it. I was so looking forward to what was to be the world premiere of M. Butterfly, where I was going to sing the tenor role of Mark. Mark is our main character, Gallimar's friend, and a bad influence from his schoolboy days. I was looking forward to joining an incredible team with stage director James Robinson, conductor Seiyoung, and featuring countertenor Kangmin Justin Kim, baritone Mark Stone, soprano Hira Haesung Park, and bass Kevin Burdett. While it has been heartbreaking to slow the momentum of this world premiere, I know that this is only a pause, and M. Butterfly will have its summer in the spotlight, hopefully not too far in the future. I hope you have your beverage of choice poured and you're settled in for this remarkable and true story. This evening, I made myself a lychee martini. This quarantine has resulted in a lot of pent-up creative energy, so please, dress up, throw on a costume, decorate your coffee table or patio, and share photos of your at-home tailgate with the hashtags SFO Fashion and Show Us Your Tailgate. Now keep in mind that tonight is a celebration, so cheers. As we dive into M. Butterfly, the main thing to keep in mind is that this is not Madama Butterfly. In many ways, it is a reversal of Puccini's tale. Instead of the Asian woman being left to a tragic end, in M. Butterfly, we find that it is the Western man who succumbs to his heartbreak. To give us more background on this new work, let's hear from dramaturg Corey Ellison.
M. Butterfly, the play by David Henry Hwang, dates back to 1988. And of course, it won the Tony Award for Best Play on Broadway. And it was just a runaway hit. It ran for a couple of years, and there was a film made from it in the 90s. And it screams out for operatic treatment because it's kind of a reversal of the tale of Madama Butterfly, in the sense that in this particular telling, it's the Westerner who ends up suffering. And there's also the fact that it references Madama Butterfly, which the composer, Huang Ruo, actually puts to use in his score. He does have a few quotes here and there from the Puccini. It's interesting because when I was speaking to David Hwang, he told me that when he first heard this story, he said he heard the story at a cocktail party, and it's a true story. It's based on the story of a French diplomat in China who had a 20-year affair with a Chinese actor from the Chinese opera, thinking that this person was a woman, and this person really turned out to be male. Now, of course, the first question is, how can this possibly be? But that's the fascination of the opera. David Hwang felt immediately when he heard this story that, oh, this is crying out to be dramatized. But his first thought was, this should be musical. He thought it should be maybe a musical theater piece or an opera, but at the time, those resources just didn't, the stars weren't aligned for that. So he did set it as a spoken play, and of course, it ended up being a huge hit and winning a Tony Award. But years later, he had the opportunity when he was working with Huang Ruo, the composer, Chinese-American composer. They were working together. Huang Ruo was creating incidental music for one of David Hwang's plays. And they said, well, what about doing an opera together? And this was the first thing that they thought of, to musicalize David's play, M. Butterfly, because of its obvious musical parallels. Huang Ruo, of course, is the perfect person to set this story to music, as David Hwang realized. His style in general is, of course, a combination of East and West. He was raised in China, and the Eastern styles and methods of music are so much a part of his DNA, but he has brought that with him here to the West, to the US, where he spent the past couple of decades, and amalgamated that so much with the Western idiom of music. And all of his works play with that balance and that contrast and that sort of tension between East and West. I think in 1988, when this play was new on Broadway, David Hwang's M. Butterfly, one of the chief attractions of it, the thing that people were most excited about, was sort of the surprise element of it. Now I think because the play is so well known, that's not the main event of it. We go into it knowing that, but it's a play whose significance has really blossomed, I think, over these decades, because for several reasons. First of all, because of the changes in China and in the West's relationship with China during these past couple of decades, but also, first and foremost, because issues of gender identity and gender fluidity are so very topical now that M. Butterfly, in its play form and in its new operatic form, addressed that in such a provocative and fascinating way that it becomes very compelling.
Casting the lead role of Song Li-ling as a countertenor is one of the most interesting facets of this opera. Not only has the countertenor voice really surged to great prominence in the last decade, but within this story you have a character of indeterminate gender, and the countertenor voice serves this perfectly. The countertenor is a male voice that operates in what we recognize as the female register, or the treble register, truly breaking all preconceived notions of what a male voice sounds like versus a female voice. There is no voice type that embodies gender ambiguity and fluidity more than the countertenor, and that in itself expresses the character of Song Li-ling. And there's no better artist to take on this role than Kangmin Justin Kim, one of the most sought-after countertenors today. Now, when I first heard Justin's voice, I was taken aback. I've heard many countertenors in my life, but this was different. I wish I could explain it well enough. It was so beautiful and seamless that if I closed my eyes, I could have absolutely thought it was a soprano singing Butterfly. It's one of the things I love about Justin's characterization of Song Li-ling. You can absolutely see how Gallimard might mistake him for the ingenue soprano he pretends to be. Justin was to have his Santa Fe opera debut this summer, adding to an impressive resume that includes engagements at the Royal Opera House, Covent Garden, the Staatsoper Berlin, the Salzburg Festival, and Glyndebourne. Justin now joins us from Paris to sing Song Li-ling's most profound aria. He is accompanied by our head of music staff, Robert Tweten, and together they bring you Awoke as a Butterfly.
I pretend pretend to know the truth. I know the truth, and so I pretend. The love of a butterfly, always changing, from crawling to confinement to fluttering, then to die. I awoke as a butterfly who dreams of being human, and I am a human who dreams of
Bravo, Justin and Bob. Justin, I cannot wait to welcome you to Santa Fe. Thank you for that beautiful performance. And when you get here, you'll have one of these waiting for you on my back porch. Tonight's episode is so rare in the opera world. With a new work, the idea is to build anticipation and intrigue leading up to the premiere. And one of the thrills of being in the audience on opening night is that you are among a relatively small number of people that get to witness the unveiling of a never-before-seen or heard production. I mean, could you imagine what it would have been like hearing Puccini's newest opera, or Mozart's, or Verdi's? Any one of these new operas has the chance to become immortal, and you could be the first to hear it. M. Butterfly began as a Broadway play, but writer David Henry Hwang knew that it deserved the operatic treatment. He and Huang Ruo began developing the story into an opera over 5 years ago. And in February of 2016, the Santa Fe Opera signed on to produce and premiere the new work. Now, I think we should take a minute to appreciate just how incredible it is to have both the composer and the librettist here to witness the production alive. To put my point into perspective, in our 2020 season, the second youngest opera, Rusalka, was written 120 years ago. We are truly witnessing history in the making. Now, the process of developing a new opera is long and complex, to say the least. Writing the score, fitting the libretto to the music and the plot, incorporating the scenic design and sets, costumes, props, casting the singers, and finally, the stage director, in this case, the amazing James Robinson, weaves all of the threads of the production together to form a cohesive and beautiful work of art. As a new opera approaches its final stages, the creative team and artists engage in a workshopping process. Now, this is where the rubber meets the road. Over the past year and a half, M. Butterfly has had 2 rounds of workshops where the team comes together to read, sing, and hear the opera as it develops. The second workshop took place at the Asia Society in New York City last fall as the inaugural event of the Asia Society Triennial, which will open later this year on October 27th. At the workshop, a few select scenes were performed, including Renee Gallimar's aria, The Perfect Woman, sung by baritone Michael Hawk. Michael is a former Santa Fe opera apprentice and was going to return to New Mexico this summer to sing the role of Fiorello in The Barber of Seville, and also to cover the role of Gallimard. I'm now pleased to present an excerpt from the Asia Society workshop debuting The Perfect Woman, conducted by Santa Fe Opera chorus master, the incomparable Susanne Sheston, and accompanied by pianist John Arida.
And what was waiting for me back in Paris? Friends and relatives. A little accounting, keeping track of traffic violations. I would tell others of my lost love, that in China, I was different from all other men, that in China, I was different from all other men. No one listened. They all walked away. This was ultimate cruelty. I can talk and talk, and to anyone listening, it only adds to rich and yet to be swallowed by a mundane world. Why can't anyone understand that in China, I once loved and was loved by, very simply, the perfect
Bravo, Michael. Well done. As a former apprentice myself, I can tell you that singing a new role at a workshop can be a pivotal opportunity as a young singer, and the Santa Fe Opera always strives to provide these experiences to its apprentices. Earlier, I mentioned how amazing it is to have both the composer and librettist with us for the production of M. Butterfly. Well, I first met composer Huang Ruo in 2014. It was my first year as a principal artist in Santa Fe singing the role of Giacchino in Beethoven's Fidelio. My identical twin brother, Joseph Dennis, was in his second year as an apprentice here. That year, we were performing the American premiere of Huang Ruo's Dr. Sun Yat-sen. Well, at the last minute, the man slated to sing the title role had an emergency back in China and had to leave. My brother jumped in and sang the rest of the performances. At the same time, they couldn't find anyone to cover or understudy my brother in such a short amount of time, so when I was asked if I would do it, I jumped at the opportunity. It was one of the hardest things I've ever had to do, not just because Huang Ruo's music is challenging, but because it was written in Mandarin and Cantonese. I'll never forget opening night and listening to my brother sing Huang Ruo's beautiful Chinese melodies. The moment he stepped on stage and opened his mouth to sing, I cried like a baby. Last season, I had the same reaction when I heard my brother's voice being played over the speaker system in the subway station in Kaohsiung, Taiwan. You see, I was there to sing another of Huang Ruo's operas, Paradise Interrupted. I was singing a role that my brother debuted, and they used his voice to advertise it. Chelsea and I must have looked strange as we cried with delight in the middle of the train station. M. Butterfly was to be the first Huang Ruo production that my brother didn't beat me to first. Getting to know the work of David Henry Hwang and Huang Ruo has been a privilege. I'm delighted to welcome Huang Ruo and David to the Santa Fe Opera stage, albeit virtually. Our very own artistic director, Alexander Neef, joins these gentlemen from Toronto to discuss M. Butterfly.
Well, hello, Huang Ruo and David Henry Hwang. From my living room to yours, really. Thank you for making the time to join us for this episode of Songs from the Santa Fe Opera, even though I want to say we will not be singing. I won't be singing. Maybe you will.
Not me. Huang Ruo might sing.
I will not be singing. So we'll
You never know, so yes.
Yeah, we are the talking part of Songs from the Santa Fe Opera. I just want to talk a little bit about the opera and ask you about the genesis of it, how it came together. And maybe starting with David, because you are the original creator of the material, to ask you what drew you to the story in the first place? And what makes it a good opera?
Well, of course, M. Butterfly, the opera, is based on M. Butterfly, the play, which at this point is more than 30 years old. And the original impulse was a newspaper article that somebody told me about at a cocktail party. Have you heard the story of the French diplomat who had a 20-year affair with a Chinese actress who turned out to be A, spy, and B, what we would now call biologically male. And the diplomat claimed that he never knew the true gender of his lover. So that's a very intriguing story to begin with and raises the obvious question, how could he not have known? And in the play, I came up with the idea of dovetailing the events of the spy story with the plot of Madame Butterfly. And so therefore, 25 years, 30 years later, it becomes really unnatural to do as an opera. I think when I originally conceived it, I thought, oh, there would be lots of music. It would be a musical or something. And so music has always been part of the DNA and opera specifically of M. Butterfly.
Thank you. Speaking of the two butterflies, you're not afraid of competition, Huang Ruo.
It was written for me.
And you even kind of use Puccini's piece a little bit as a quarry or a material for some of the opera. Maybe you want to talk about it a little bit, how you came to the play, how you came to the opera, and also your own relationship with the material of more or less the same name by Puccini. I think it would be really interesting to hear.
Yeah. So to me, to make an opera version of this wonderful play, it should offer something different, and it should tell the story from a different angle, in this case, through music and the drama of music. The first thing I did was I look at these two very different stories, and then I try to find what is the common thing between them. So in a way, yes, they both deal with stereotype, cultural stereotype and race stereotype, but also down to the heart is about human emotion, human passion, human love. How far can one person go to achieve what he or she dream about, or the illusion? Would this person live with reality or die with that illusion? I think both operas touch on this human nature. So by finding that common bond of these two stories, it helped me to form the structure of this opera in a way that the Puccini, the wonderful music of Puccini was directly quoted at the beginning of the embassy party when they first met, when Song sang Umbadi. And then after that, it was hinted here and there, but only to portray as the psychological mind of the characters. So this way, I hope to bring out something deeper than just the collage of two different opera, but it become one, and the music comes through that dramatic purpose and to serve that character building.
Beautiful. Obviously, this pandemic has, disrupted our lives in many different ways, and some of them quite devastating, and it continues to do so. Does the story of Butterfly mean something different for you in this context? Is there anything that you find in it now that you wouldn't have before? I mean, I think that's true for any work of art, right? I think the works of art don't change all that much, but what changes is how we see them, because we change and our environment changes and our societies change and all of that.
I mean, Huang Ruo was saying a little earlier that the story is to some extent about cultural stereotypes, in the sense that the diplomat sees what he wants to see, the French diplomat, of the Chinese opera singer, and in some sense gets trapped in the unreality of his own illusions. And somewhat related to that right now is, there has been this increase in anti-Asian violence in America and Canada, throughout the West. And many of us, including myself, have stories of being harassed, and there have also been physical attacks on Asian Americans. And this is also the result of a cultural stereotype, the notion that somehow, because we have these faces, we are associated with this disease that is plaguing the world, even though, I was born in Los Angeles. Huang Ruo has lived here his entire adult life. We really didn't have anything to do with the pandemic, but that stereotype persists.
Yeah, and there's a long history of that, obviously, that starts before this pandemic. That we love to point to, minority communities and blame them for all kinds of things and exclude them. And that's one of the reasons why I think this piece is important, because it puts people on stage that we don't usually see on our operatic stages, at least not that prominently, which I think in this moment becomes more important than ever.
Absolutely. So also to add to that is, although the play was written 30 years ago, and it was based on a true story, also happened long before that. But I think that, people always say opera is about love and death, and in that order. Yes, we also have that in M Butterfly, but the larger message of the East and the West, the balance between these two culture, two different power, and even today's world is still very, very vivid and displays in front of us, not as people think it's the old story. So I do think that M Butterfly, it is telling a story of today as well.
Absolutely. As all the great works of art do, I think. Mm-hmm. For me, none of them are really old, for a simple reason, because we perform them as 21st century people for our 21st century audiences. Yeah. Right? We're not, I think, attending a performance of whatever piece is not time traveling. Mm-hmm. So we have this great opportunity today to speak with the two of you as the creators of a new opera, which I think is still a rarity for our audiences and something wonderful for our audiences too. We usually have to piece, but for most of the repertoire, we really can't talk to the creators anymore. So I have kind of the big question for you for the end of this conversation. How do you as creators and who people are really on the ground and doing it, how do you see the future of the art form? How do you see opera evolving? And how do you see like works like In Butterfly play a role in the future of the art form?
I mean, I would like to think that a piece like M. Butterfly expands the subject matters, the diversity of creators, and therefore reaches a broader demographic in terms of audience, which I think is what all art forms are going to have to do. That is, you have a world audience, you have an America where people of color will be the majority by 2040 or so. So in order to keep the form vital and relevant and alive, new sorts of stories have to be told. And one thing I want to give Santa Fe Opera props for is that from the very beginning, when we started looking to cast this, Santa Fe Opera committed to casting an Asian American singer in the role of Sung Li Ling, even though it's a counter tenor part and therefore hard to find. But that sort of commitment and willingness to look, and of course we found the wonderful Justin Kim, is a marker for Santa Fe's commitment to the future of the form.
You know, my gratitude also go to Santa Fe Opera for commissioning this, opera, not only because of the subject matters, but also the commitment of keep bringing out newness, new opera. Every opera, even 100 years old, was once new. And when Verdi or Puccini, when they were writing stories, and a lot of times they were also thinking about the present day of their time living through. So I think, the future of opera is just like the future of opera in the past. When they talk about it, it will always continue through the form of making your voice to be heard, no matter through notes, through speaking or rapping different ways. But the most important thing is there's a reason for that. And opera tells the life story or tells the character story, and we cannot escape the life that we all live in. So David and I, we are the product of our life we live in this society, and we are like mirror reflecting on what we see or what the world reflects on us. So opera as an art form also reflects on the world through our eyes and through our voices. So we hope to share M. Butterfly with everyone. And this opera, of course, we also hope will be able to live on and to be able to be pass the message throughout different times.
Beautifully said. Thank you. Well, thank you for sharing your thoughts with us today. I think that concludes our conversation, but I just want to thank you again, Huang Ruo and David Henry Hwang.
Thanks, Alexander, and this wonderful discussion and conversation.
Thank you, everyone, for joining us on what would have been the opening night and world premiere of M. Butterfly. I hope you enjoyed tonight's performances and insights as much as I have. The Santa Fe Opera is proud to play a major role in the commissioning and producing of new opera, having produced 16 world premieres. M. Butterfly would have been the 17th. New works like M. Butterfly require creative genius, like that of Huang Ruo and David. But they also take faith. The Santa Fe Opera is committed to producing new works because we have faith in the bold and engaging future of this art form. While the pandemic and resulting cancellations of our season kept us from presenting M. Butterfly this year, I have every confidence that the Santa Fe Opera's legacy of producing new works will continue for years to come. That's why I would like to ask you to consider supporting the development of new works, the future of this company, and our continued pursuit of artistic excellence by making a gift to the Santa Fe Opera. Now, here's what's so cool. If you give now, it will be matched dollar for dollar by a group of generous friends having double the impact and providing twice the support. If you're not usually a donor, but purchase tickets to performances, please consider donating what you would have spent on those tickets. Together, especially with your help, we will make it to the other side of this storm. It has been an honor and a privilege to bring music back to our stage. I hope that these 5 tributes to the 2020 season brought you closer to Santa Fe and also gave you a sense of hope and optimism for the power of music and its ability to bring us together even when we must stay physically apart. As we toast this opening night and the finale of our Songs from the Santa Fe Opera series, I would like to raise a glass to each of you. Thank you for joining us, and thank you for your faith in the Santa Fe Opera. Cheers.